Okay. All right, we're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. And everybody stand for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Almighty God, bless our nation and make it faithful to the ideals of freedom and justice and brotherhood for all who make it great. Be close to our municipal leaders. Give us vision and courage as we ponder decisions affecting the welfare of our citizens and the future of our cities. Make us more intently aware of our heritage, realizing not only our rights, but also our duties and responsibilities as citizens. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Carly, if you can call the roll, please.
Here.
McAleese.
Here.
Thompson. Here. Reed.
Here.
Penny.
Here. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. This morning, we will conduct an agenda meeting for the May 12th regular commission meeting, immediately followed by an administrative workshop. Right now, we're just going to review the items that will be on the agenda for next week. Starting off with, looks like we've got a consent agenda, and these will be the approval of the minutes for the month of April. Under new business, we're going to have a motion to approve the First Amendment of the interlocal agreement between Pinellas County and MPDES MS4 co-permittees for the Florida Department of Environmental Protection annual regulatory program and surveillance fee. And then our last item was a motion to approve Pinellas County Local Mitigation Strategy Annual Update 2025-26. Anyone have any concerns or questions over these items? Nope. Hearing none. Then we'll move ahead with this agenda for next week, and I adjourn this meeting at this time. All right, go for it. Ready? All right. We're going to go ahead and call this administrative workshop to order. And if Carly, if you can call the roll again, please.
Nininger.
Here.
McAleese.
Here.
Thompson. Here. Reed.
Here.
Penny.
Here. All right. Well, the first item on our agenda today is the Vulnerability Assessment Presentation with Advanced Engineering and Design. Come forward.
I guess where's the best place to?
Probably just join them at the table.
Right in the middle, I
Yeah,
guess,
just go
yeah.
ahead and join them at the table.
You still being so up close and personal.
Yeah.
That's our city.
Bring it right into the family there.
No, that's great. Well, Mayor, Commission, City staff, everyone else that's here today, thank you for offering us this presentation, or the opportunity to give the presentation on your final vulnerability assessment. And the sign-in sheet that went around earlier, that was just a requirement for FDEP. In order for you to get reimbursed, one of the sub-task deliverables they have for the final presentation is just proof that there were people here to see the presentation. So on today's presentation, I'm trying to keep it brief. So to give you an idea, which one of the commissioners told me that he took a look at the report, but this presentation is meant to be a condensed version of your report.
Okay.
But the final report is complete and ready for review. So with that being said, let's get into the presentation. So to give you a brief outline of what the presentation is going to go over, we're going to have some acknowledgments. I'm going to introduce you to what a VA is and why your city pursued one. And then I'll talk about the individual components of VAs, including an asset inventory, an exposure analysis, a sensitivity analysis. And then where do you go from here? So the next steps. So first, to start with the acknowledgments, so I wanted to thank the City of South Pasadena, city staff, especially Sean. We've been working a lot with him on the vulnerability assessment. Obviously, the commission for your support in pursuing the grant and pursuing the project. So thank you all for that. Secondly, I would like to thank the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, both their staff, the grant managers, planning reviewers, and GIS reviewers for reviewing all the deliverables associated with the city's VA, but also for funding 100% of the city's VA. And last but not least, our team at Advanced Engineering and Design, including myself, Justin Keller, and Mark Laskin. All right, so now to get into the meat and potatoes a little bit, vulnerability assessments. So what is a VA? And I'll call it VA for short. So VAs, they're studies that identify and evaluate the susceptibility of your assets, and not necessarily just your assets, so all assets within the city boundary, to various forms of flooding. And they're aimed to enhance Florida's ability to withstand and recover from future disasters, focusing on sea level rise, storm surge, and extreme rainfall events. And VAs can differ from municipality to municipality, but generally speaking, they're all going to have these three major components, which are an asset inventory, an exposure analysis, and a sensitivity analysis. So why did we as a city do a VA? For one, it's a foundational step towards community hardening. It's a way in which you can figure out, well, document more so where all of your opportunities are, all of your vulnerabilities are as a city. Largely, this study is not going to tell you something that you don't already know. It is just a way to document it. Secondly, VAs are mandatory for local governments to receive grant funding through the Resilient Florida program. So since you've now completed a VA, you are eligible for, this was done through a planning grant, but you're eligible for an implementation grant that has a 50% match through the state to do projects that may address some of the vulnerabilities identified in this study. So it's a vehicle to more funding. And last but not least, this VA was 100% funded through the Resilient Florida program. So their planning grants are 100% funded and their implementation grants are 50% funded. But this particular study was paid entirely by the FDEP. So I told you earlier that all VAs, although they can differ from municipality to municipality, have three primary components, the first of which is an asset inventory. During this step, we gather all of the assets that FDEP determines to be critical. So in your particular vulnerability assessment, I guess before we get into the specifics, FDEP has 4 different asset classes that they break out. These are 2 of those 4, which are critical community and emergency facilities. You'll see that abbreviated as CCEF, and critical infrastructure, which you'll see abbreviated as CI. So in the city's VA, we have included affordable public housing, EMS facilities, fire stations, healthcare facilities, hospitals, local government facilities, and pharmacies under that CCEF asset class. And then under critical infrastructure, we've included communication facilities, stormwater structures, and wastewater structures under that critical infrastructure class. And then you'll see the numbers in brackets. Those pertain to the number of GIS objects that represent that particular asset type. One thing to note, and this will make more sense as we get to the next slide, objects do not necessarily directly correlate to assets. And I'll explain. That'll be more evident, I think, on the next slide. So then the last 2 asset classes that FDEP provides us with is the natural, cultural, and historical resources. I'll abbreviate this as NCHR throughout the presentation, and transportation and evacuation routes, and I'll abbreviate that as TER during this presentation. Under NCHR, we have historical and cultural assets, parks, shorelines, and wetlands. And then under transportation and evacuation routes, we have bridges and major roads. So that distinction I made earlier, South Pasadena does not have 243 bridges.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I was looking at, I don't know what shoreline is. That's not feet, that's not miles, that's not beaches. I'm not sure what that is.
So shoreline is going to represent, so I guess to clarify, why there's so many objects and why there's a variance between the number of objects and the number of assets is anything that is linear. In GIS, in order for me to give you an elevation, a land elevation, and a flood depth, I need to reduce that line down to a point.
Oh, okay.
But instead of saying your whole shoreline is represented by this one particular point, I take points every so far, every so many feet, which
Thank
is
you.
why bridges and roads and shorelines are much,
Yeah.
much greater than what you would expect.
Yeah, we need a much bigger budget for 300 or 243 bridges.
Right, but I bet tourism would be booming, right? All right, so that was your critical asset inventory. So that is just the part in which we determine which all assets are going to be included within your vulnerability assessment. The next step is the exposure analysis. With the exposure analysis, we determine the depths of flooding associated with each of the flood scenarios that are included within your VA. So as mentioned earlier, vulnerability assessments focus on three primary threats: sea level rise, storm surge, and rainfall. When we think of sea level rise, we can think of water that comes ashore as the height of the water along the coastline increases. When we think of storm surge, we can think of water that comes ashore with hurricanes or tropical storms. And when we think of rainfall, we can think of water that comes from the atmosphere onto the surface. Now, there's an asterisk under rainfall here, and the reason why there's an asterisk there is because rainfall incorporates compounding flooding. So we take into account your 100-year and your 500-year storm with sea level rise scenarios. So you can see rainfall throughout, the 2040 intermediate low all the way to 2100 intermediate high. So your particular VA included 21 unique scenarios. So now the rainfall might make a little more sense. But we have 5 sea level rise scenarios, we have 6 storm surge scenarios, and we have 10 rainfall scenarios. All of these scenarios have a planning horizon that ranges from current conditions all the way to 2100, and we use the intermediate low and the intermediate high. So you're going to see for sea level rise 2040, IL, IH, that's intermediate low, intermediate high, 2070, intermediate low, intermediate high, and 2100 intermediate high. Storm surge will have all of those, plus it has the current conditions. And rainfall has 10 because we do all of them for the 100-year and then all of them for the 500-year storm event. And then this presentation for brevity will only focus on the ones that are in the red boxes. So I'm only going to show you the worst case scenarios. But your report outlines all 21, and we can talk about more if you'd like. So starting with sea level rise, so this is exposure, and all of these maps are going to show what it would look like if the city were to experience the kind of event that is associated with the most extreme example of each of those categories. So the picture that you see there is representative of the 2100 intermediate high sea level rise scenario. And as you can see, all the parts of the city that are not blue are not impacted. All the parts of the city that are blue are impacted. So in the 2100 scenario, roughly 97% of the city is impacted. And impacts range from a little over 10% in the 2040 intermediate low through a little over 97% through the 2100 intermediate high. And it's important to note that impact does not specify a particular depth. So if there's water there, I counted it as impacted.
Looks like my home is still gonna be okay.
Really? Wow.
One of the lucky 3%.
One of the, was right there.
Was it?
Yeah, that's great.
It's gone now, though.
Storm surge, the city is incredibly vulnerable to storm surge in all scenarios. From current to 2100, the range is 99 to 100, almost 100 the whole way through if you round. And again, though, this is worst case scenario because this is the 2100 intermediate high storm surge showing 100% impact for the city. Now we have the two rainfalls. So this is the 100-year rainfall event. You're going to see a mirroring of the sea level rise because this is compounded. So we took the rainfall associated with your model and we compounded it with the current sea level rise, with the sea level rise conditions associated with each of those planning horizons. So this is sea level rise plus rain. So on the 100-year rainfall event under the 2100 intermediate high, you're showing a little over 97% impact. Like I said, it's going to mirror it because you're seeing sea level rise plus the storm.
Publix will still be open. I mean, this really looks like the only spot.
So you Publix and your home, maybe getting there you might need a boat, but you should be able to get back and forth. And then 500-year, also very similar. You're going to see that the ranges for the 500-year event are between 29% and 97%. Again, you're seeing worst case scenario with the 2100 intermediate high sea level rise condition compounded with a 500-year rainfall event showing 97% impact.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Can you explain this 500-year, 100-year? I mean, put it into real terms. I mean, none of us are going to be around for the 500-year, hopefully, but what does that mean?
Sure. So, and that's a little bit of a misnomer, so I'm actually glad you brought this up. So the 100-year and the 500-year storm events aren't necessarily stating that you're only going to have one of these events every 100 years or one of these events every 500 years. They're meant to speak to a probability. So a 100-year storm event, in theory, should be a 1 in 100 chance, whereas a 500-year storm event should be a 1 in 500-year chance. So think about it as more of a probability and less so as a duration of time.
But what leads you to come up with the city 97% impacted on a 500-year event? Is it how many? Are we talking a foot of rain, 6 inches of rain plus storms? How is that number
Generated?
Yeah. What is a 100-year and 500-year storm in real
So
terms?
in inches.
Like the signs we have around the city here. How deep are they going to be?
Yeah, in inches. I would have to look at your model to confirm that, but I want to say the 500-year in the model I think is around 15 inches, and then I think the 100-year is around 12 inches. But I can confirm that. I'd have to look at your model to confirm.
Talking about covering the city? Or
No,
or
not
above
covering.
storm surge?
That would just be the input into the WMP
Okay, all right,
itself.
I got you.
But I can follow up on that particular question.
Give me some perspective. Thank you.
You're welcome. And then the other thing to keep in mind is with both the 100-year and the 500-year storm events, so we are not saying that when you have a 100-year rainfall event or a 500-year rainfall event that this is the impact of the city, like today. We're saying that with sea level, with projected sea level rises, this is what you would see. So keep that in mind too.
Yeah, I know, I
I'm
get
not
that.
saying that a 100-year storm is going to have 97% of your city
I
covered.
Yeah.
So we had Helene a year and a half ago. Was that a 100-year storm for this city? To put things in perspective for me?
I want to say that that was closer to a 500, but again, that is something I'd have to
Thank you very
confirm.
much.
Yeah, I do not, that was not a normal storm event.
Right, okay. All right, that's helpful.
So we've covered two of the three major components of a vulnerability assessment. We've covered your asset inventory, and we have covered your exposure analysis. Your sensitivity analysis, to me, is where you just put both of them together. So we take all of the assets that you have, represent them geospatially on a map, and then we take all of those same floodplains that you see and overlay them. Now, the only difference, or maybe slightly more complex part, is we use rasters, which enable us to actually show depth instead of just a two-dimensional polygon. So before we get into sensitivity analysis, a quick review. So the city's VA included 15 feature classes. So those first two lists that I showed you with all of like your the 4 different asset classes and everything that was listed. So the city has 15 of those, 15 feature classes. Each one of those feature classes combined represents a total of almost 1,400 unique objects. So that's counting all of those numbers in the brackets on those slides. And then I showed you that there are 21 unique flood scenarios that were included with your vulnerability assessment, 5 sea level rise, 6 surge, and 10 rainfall events. That would mean that we are working with over 29,379 data points in terms of where this particular object is located and the depth across each of those scenarios. It's part of why the report's so long. Yeah. Now, we needed to develop a way to make this data digestible and actionable for the city. Well, yeah, now this sheet or a similar version of it is covered in the report. I don't recommend that you look at it, though. You can get a little lost in it. But it is there if you would like to take a look at it. But to give you an idea of what we're looking at, so everything that we're doing is in GIS, but we can export some of the tables that we're working with in GIS to Excel, and then you would get something that looks like this spreadsheet. But just to give you a little bit of the appreciation of the data crunching that we do. So in order to make this something to where the city could actually get digestible information and potentially act on it, we came up with something called C-Score. So, and I think C-Score, I think I go into it on the next slide. Yeah, so C-Score is an acronym. It stands for Submersible, Essential, and Amplitude, so SEA. And to give you a brief idea of how C-Score works, I just have an example here. If we look at the left-hand side as a park and the right-hand side as a fire station, to put in perspective how each of the three components of C-Score work. So the S component, and next slide please, the submersible component, we can think of, can the asset be underwater, or how sensitive is that asset to water? Now, in a perfect world, we would not want our park or our fire station underwater, but I think we can appreciate the fact that if the park were to be underwater and the fire station were to be underwater, once that water receded, the park is likely in a better state to recover than the fire station. Okay. So with that being said, we would then provide the fire station with a higher submersible score than the park, which will later mean that it'll rank higher.
So is the scoring system 0 to 5?
0 to 5 across
okay.
all three of those. And then there's a weighting factor, and then you add them. So at the end of the day, everything will have a C-score between 0 and 5.
Okay, thank you.
And then for essential, next slide please, we can think of, is this asset important? Now, if this bench were to be near your home and it happened to have the best view in the city, that might be a very important spot to you. But in terms of the services that that park or that park bench would offer to the city versus the fire station, we would all agree that the fire station is more essential. So again, here, the fire station would have a higher score than what the park would. And the last slide, or next slide, please. So then amplitude is how bad does it flood? So this then, we're not assigning this value manually. This is one that is based on the data that we've generated. So across all of those 21 scenarios, how bad does this asset flood in comparison to all of the other assets? Now, that being said, in this particular example, that park looks like it's on the coast. Now, these are just two random pictures, but and let's say that fire station's more inland, or let's say it's part of the 3% of the city that's not impacted, near your house or near Publix. Then we could say that in this particular, for the A component of C-score, the park may score higher. But you can offset that by stating that, well, we think the fire station's more important and we recognize that it's more sensitive. And that was the real purpose of C-score. So FDEP does require us to have a ranking system for each of our assets, but the default is just based on depth. But we didn't want to see a park rank higher than a fire station just because it's impacted by more water, if that makes any sense. So to put that all together, so again, we have the C-score, which is an acronym for submersible, essential, and amplitude. And now that we understand how each of the components work, the final formula is the weighting factor of each of those components times the score for that component, and then we add them together. And that's how you get to that C-score from 0 to 5 for all assets. Default weighting factor across all of these is just 1/3, so we weigh them all equally, but we have the capability of weighing one thing more than the other. Say that you wanted essentiality to be worth more than amplitude or submersible or whichever particular way. But all three weights need to add to 1 in order to keep that 0 to 5 final relationship. So once we applied that methodology to the cities, assets and all of the floodplains associated with the 21 scenarios. The top-ranked assets in the city were hospitals, lift stations, fire stations, EMS facilities, and communication facilities. It's a little hard to see on that map, but I have them outlined in red with blue numbers beside them. But those were the top 5. Now, this report goes over where every single, all of those 1,399 were ranked. But I just prefer the presentation. I just went over the top 5. And based on C-score, we determined that there were 17 that were ranked high, 276 that were ranked medium, and then 1,106 that were ranked low. So now that I've shown you more so what you already know, but provided some maps and some data to back that up, and I explained to you why we did a VA, what a VA is, and what the components of the VA are, what's next? So whenever we look at resiliency, I like to look at it as sort of a roadmap. And that roadmap has 3 major milestones. And this was a figure that I took from the Florida Planning Handbook. So it's not one I've personally created. I've modified it a little bit. But in vulnerability assessments, which is where this begins, that's where we identify our opportunities. Where are our challenges as a city? What are we vulnerable to? What particular storm events and what particular assets? We've now completed that, so you can see that we are here because we are through the vulnerability assessment. So the next part of that would be an adaptation plan. So we develop strategies specifically to address the challenges we've identified in the vulnerability assessment. And then after we've completed an adaptation plan, typically there's an implementation plan or just the implementation sort of step. And that is where you actually start to execute those solutions. So at VAs, we identify challenges and problems. In an adaptation plan, we develop strategies to mitigate or address those problems and challenges. And then in an implementation plan, we actually execute those strategies. So another way to look at these 3 components is what can be done to address current and future impacts. You develop the adaptation strategies in your adaptation plan. How can we turn those strategies into actionable solutions? Oftentimes that's exploring different funding sources. And then how do we fund, or sorry, I skipped a step. How do we turn those strategies into actionable solutions? So we identify solutions and projects. And then once you have those solutions and projects, then how do we actually execute those solutions? And oftentimes that's exploring funding sources. So with that said, the next step, I believe, for the city would be, obviously with commission support and city support, would be to pursue an adaptation plan. And that's not something you have to decide today. If that is something the city would like to pursue, that would also be 100% funded by FDEP, and we would move forward in doing that grant for the city at no cost, if that is the direction the city wants to go. Not a decision you have to make today. If you would want to pursue it in the near future, the applications would be due in September if you wanted to get it on this cycle. But again, not a decision you have to make today.
So how long would you need to do the application? I mean, if we didn't do it today, let's say, what do we got, a month?
Oh yeah, if you let us know in a month, that'd be plenty of time. Yeah, 1 month, 2 months. I mean, honestly, if you let us know, I would say in July. If you'd like to move forward with that, that would give us plenty of time.
I need to understand this a little better.
Yeah.
What would be an example of something that we would have to include as part of the plan?
Adaptation plan? So the adaptation plans, can I back it up a little bit and talk about just what they are? So with an adaptation plan, obviously your sort of your square one or your square zero, so to speak, is your VA. So we look at all of these areas, which, I mean, for the city, it's low, so there's a lot of areas of opportunity. And we could look at particular assets. And then we can brainstorm both as the commission, as residents, as city staff, and as the firm in which you work with on it, to develop solutions. So say that you wanted to put in a pump station, say that you wanted to raise seawalls and put in a pump station, or say that you wanted to look at elevating parts of the city or all of the city through terrain modification. We could then sort of, I don't want to say scope those out, but we could put some ideas together, and then we could have public engagement's a big component of adaptation plans, to where we would then present those solutions to residents and gauge from live, as we're talking with residents, what their feedback is on those. Would they support those kinds of solutions? Or do they have any of their own they would like to propose? So it's a way to kind of come up with solutions and look at the feasibility of solutions across the whole community. And then that all gets documented in your adaptation plan. And the ultimate goal of the adaptation plan, through all of that public engagement and through all of that planning, is to actually have strategies that, one, could work for the city, that the city, not just commission and staff support, but also resident support. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Oh, how's everybody feel about it?
This would be a public record item.
The adaptation plan or the
Yeah,
VA?
The whole thing.
The whole thing, yeah, all this would be public record.
It's interesting information, but I think the data points can be overwhelming to the people who are not into this. And I think it could have a detriment to attracting and retaining businesses to our city. Because it paints a picture right now of like, we're gonna sink.
Yeah.
And, you know, we've gone through, as you said, a 500-year flood. I mean, I've been hearing that the ice caps are gonna melt, and I should be in the water right now since I was a teenager. You know, I mean, just being honest. I mean, and I'm not a teenager anymore. Yeah, no, shocking.
22 now, right? Yeah.
But I worry about the uninitiated getting a hold of a report like this and making decisions on whether they're gonna come to our city or stay in our city on stuff that, you know, doesn't have a clear explanation to the uninitiated. So, that's my concern. I think the data's good to know, but I think perhaps, you know, there's other ways to disseminate the data to the residents without just throwing them a picture of the whole city that's got, you know, caution dots all around the entire thing except for your house.
And Publix.
Yeah, those are just my concerns. So that's that. I appreciate the presentation.
No, absolutely.
Very good.
Mayor Penny. She was one of them.
Can I say a couple things and Cody from well, basically,
Want to come on up?
I guess what I'm looking for is an example of what, like, would it be to raise up the lift stations or something? So that they didn't,
Or put in different drainage or whatever.
yeah, there's some practical, so that I really understand what we're going for.
Yeah, just to clarify a couple things, right? So what we witnessed in Helene was storm surge. Nothing to really do with a 100-year or 500-year rain event. If you think back to those rains we had in September before the storms, remember when all the vehicles were stuck in intersections and whatnot? There were portions of Pinellas County that met the hourly 100-year rainfall threshold, but we did not as a county or as an entire city meet that 100-year event rainfall, right? So we can kind of see from that what potentially could happen. Now, to your point, you know, about driving business away, I'm not sure how they look at it, right? I'm not a business person, so their perspective would be different than mine. I think my intrigue of what he's saying is the, what was the second part you just talked about that would come next?
The adaptation plan.
The adaptation plan would be sort of a roadmap of where we need to prioritize funding to make the city more resilient, and then also give us some ideas of what monies are available to make that happen. So it is kind of weird, right, where it meets the what if from the business side versus how do we as a city best protect long-term future, not next year, not 5 years, but 50 years from now. So my only question, Cody, was if we did that adaptability assessment, is there anything that says we have to move forward like in a linear fashion, or you have to complete a certain amount of those stated goals in that plan?
No, so the adaptation plan, similar to the vulnerability assessment, once you apply for the grant and you get the grant, the only commitment that you have is to complete the project. So with the adaptation plan, we could apply for funding, get funding, accept funding, complete the whole project, and then that's not obviously the goal, but in theory, the adaptation plan could sit.
But there would be nothing that dedicate city funds without those additional funding sources.
Correct. And the adaptation plan itself would be fully funded by the state.
This is to Terry, okay? So to Tom's comment, I'm asking Terry, because I honestly don't know. The new businesses that are coming into town, for instance, Kelly's seems like it's storm protected. And now hopefully we're gonna, have a Chipotle. Are the new businesses that are coming into town being built in such a way that they're protected for the 100 and the 500-year events?
I say
I don't know if
yes.
that's fair or
So-
a question or not.
The wording's a little off, but
Okay.
yes, so they are building to either flood-proof or elevate to meet those standards that they're required to meet under our floodplain regulations.
Okay.
So I just wanted to touch base on the 100-year event and the 500-year event as a floodplain manager. I hate those terms. It is the 1/100th chance, so it's 1% chance per year or 5% chance per year of these things happening. It's not going to happen for another 100 years.
No, I get that.
There's a
The
percentage.
benchmark.
Correct. This could happen any year for forever. This is what we've seen happen. And as far as Helene goes, it was almost 100 miles offshore. So just as an aside, if that had hit dead on, or Milton for that matter, it would have been a very different scenario. So that's what we're preparing for, not for 500 years from now it's going to happen, because that's a misnomer that we're trying to clean up.
Okay, but I just wanted to address, what I think Tom was talking about. The new businesses that are coming in, obviously the established ones are
Right.
not there, but the new businesses that are coming in are,
They are meeting
protecting
the
themselves.
current Florida building code.
that's true.
Yeah.
That we did have a flood here.
Yeah.
At that point.
Yes,
Okay.
and as we could tell by scooters, it was elevated, it did not get any damage from the storm. Kelly's as well, had their flood panels up, it didn't get damaged. The storage facility also had their flood panels up during the storm, there was no damage. So these things are put in place for all new construction, as well as if it hits that 50% threshold, then they have to build to the current standard.
Okay.
And right now, we have certain areas in the city that just with regular water rise floods, like right outside City Hall. And I know
Correct.
these people are tired of it, like you're talking quite a bit, about the flooding and whether we're gonna do something about it. And
This plan that would come up, I'm sure it would put in factors for these areas, and that would be some of the money we could use would be to put in whatever would help to keep this from flooding out here in these streets, just when the water rises at certain points, or when it's a heavy rain or whatever, that doesn't affect the rest of the city, but just a small area here and floods our parking lot. So I don't want to not move forward, because I know that these businesses coming in, I already know what happened. There's already a flood code that says they have to either raise it up or waterproof it. They already know this, no matter where they're pretty much gonna go anywhere, especially if they're gonna go to St. Pete Beach or something like that, what they have to do. But I do wanna take care of the people that are not part of the business, our residents, and their homes and where they're at. So personally, I'd like to just at least see us move forward enough so we can see what that is going to take, and have that available, because, I mean, this is gonna be public record anyway. This is there. It's there after the day, it's out there, you know? Anybody watching this right now, anybody else, can get a copy of this and provide it to whoever they wanna provide it to. It's already in there. And that's just my thought. I gotta look out for all these little areas in the city, and as much as I hate us losing any kind of businesses out there, I do see that that's going to change over time. I see that eventually these people that wanted something different say, hey, let's go to St. Pete Beach now, there's a bunch of empty properties there, let's get out of South Pasadena and go where all the tourists are at. Well, that's gonna fill up, or the prices are gonna be too much, and then we're gonna get other businesses in here, and I'm hoping some of these businesses we have coming in now are gonna make all that change. South Pasadena goes through a cycle. I've seen it. 17 years ago, we had 4 or 5 businesses out there. We had a little Chinese restaurant that was shut down. And we wound up having these buildings get torn down. We did what we had to do.
businesses came in and took over those spots and moved on. It's gonna happen again. I have faith in the city that it will happen again, but we still have to watch out for the city and plan for its future. So I think if we were just to ignore what we've just been told and not do anything further would not be our due diligence. That's my thoughts.
May I make additional comments?
Sure.
So if I can, I want to address something that you had said, something that you had said, and something that you had said. To the mayor's point, the document that's already public right now is the one that shows all of these scary maps. So this is the problem document, if you, so to speak, the vulnerability assessment. The next document would be the solutions document. So then that's the document then that would be, this is what we are doing to address these things, the proactive document. So I think the next step would be less scary than the step you've already completed. Now, I'm not a resident, I'm not a business owner, but that would be my take. And then to give you some more examples, so I explained what an adaptation plan would be or what it could do, but not necessarily projects that could come out of it. And I think that's really the root of your question. So one of the things, I threw out terrain modification or elevation earlier, and Terry, which thank you, Terry and Chief, for coming up as well. But Terry was talking about scooters, which I presume is the coffee shop business, yeah, it being elevated and it wasn't as impacted. So one of the things that could come out of your adaptation plan is looking at terrain modification and elevating different businesses and or assets or roadways. That would be a potential strategy to help address some of the challenges identified in your vulnerability assessment. Identifying focus areas and addressing those which could be the roadways around here, to your point, could be another. Or you could target roadways as an asset class and not necessarily particular locations, and then you can look at phasing elevations or different projects. That would be an option. Or with a pump station, which I think was another example that you had brought up. So if you raise your seawalls, you could look at doing pump stations then to address some flooding in some areas. But these are all things that can be explored in an adaptation plan, because again, you are trying to address these scary maps that we showed you on the vulnerability assessment. Now that said, I do believe the city is maybe limited in what it can do for storm surge, but sea level rise and rainfall are certainly things that I think could be addressed in the adaptation plan.
Well, I know meeting with the residents, things would have to be dumbed down whenever the discussion was made. And not just show the 100 and the 500, but show some of the smaller ones where there's still land.
No, absolutely.
Start off with those maybe.
Yes.
And so, this is 1% that's going to happen or whatever that is up here. But it's good to be ready for it. And they've already lived through this. And right now I know there's a lot of them that are proactive, wanting something done. They want to see what the city's going to do about it. I also know that I don't know how long that there'll be actually funding supplied to us to move forward through the grant process. How long is that going to last? When they're going to say this is gone, we're taking this away from you too. So I'd hate to lose out on that to help us out, because I guess when you apply for the grant, and I'm hoping I write on this, that say we have our plan, we know what we want to do, we could start, we don't have to do it all at one time. We could just say, okay, we're going to do this part first, and then maybe in a couple of years we're going to do this part, and then do this part. Is that how that would work?
So then that would be how we structure your grant application. So once the city decides to move forward, we can speak and kind of get a game plan together, deciding what exactly you want to accomplish in this round, and then we would just write your grant application to mirror that, and then make sure that the funding that we're requesting from FDEP also falls in line with what we're proposing to do. And then there'll be this back and forth process between FDEP to where they'll give us a grant work plan, which is more or less the contract between the city and them with what we're going to do. Right. And then during that process, we can make sure that what FDEP is giving us funding to do and what they're asking us to do aligns with what the city wants to do.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
They'll have their little say-so what they want us to do as well.
Yes.
Right, 'cause they'll have their specifications or whatever they would like.
And then it's almost a negotiation. I hate to call it that, but I mean, you go back and forth on the grant work plan. But we could, in that process, we would just have to make sure we kind of locked down what the city wanted and what FDEP was willing to fund.
Okay.
But I mean, you wouldn't have to move forward if we couldn't come to an agreement. Or not we, I'm sorry, the city and the state. If the city and the state couldn't come to an agreement, you'd be like, okay, well then I just don't want the funding.
Yeah.
And then that ends that.
Anybody else? So, what do we wanna do?
We need to do something,
Yeah, we do.
for sure.
I like the idea of moving forward with this.
Yeah.
I don't know if,
I mean, I expressed my concerns, and I think we've
Yeah,
had a
yeah,
great
and-
conversation
and
about it.
they're-
It's-
They're
I mean,
relevant, I mean, to
Yeah,
what's going on right now.
But at the end of the day, to your point, we've got, no, not just businesses, but residents, and, yeah, we've got to go forward.
All right, well, I mean, do we have consensus then from everyone that we wanna move forward with the next step in this process?
Yeah.
All right, you need more from us in that?
I don't think so. I mean, unless you need something, we can communicate that to you in writing. but-
Yeah, no, if you guys are comfortable then with moving forward with a grant application for an adaptation plan, no, we can get started on that.
Awesome, perfect, let's do it.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys.
you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, what do we got here? Oh, more fun stuff. Pinellas County Local Mitigation Strategy Annual Update. Is that our,
That would be
Terry?
me. Good morning again.
Good morning.
So, as you all know, we work with Pinellas County, look, and doing a local mitigation strategy plan through all the municipalities in the county, almost all the municipalities in the county, as well as the county itself, all work together every year to go over our annual update. This year, one of the big things that came up was, of course, we had the storms. So there were some updates to the repetitive loss areas of our plan, some additional documentation that we've been putting together for our program for public information. Unfortunately, the CRS section of it nothing has really happened with that because FEMA has taken a little hiatus. So
So we have zero, any kind of discount? for the residents?
we're still at our 8, which gives us the 10%, I believe it is. So they haven't upgraded us to the 7 yet. We're still waiting. That has been nearly a year. So that was, I believe, May is when we got the approval, but then they shut down. So we're still waiting on that to be updated. But other than that, I mean, the LMS we got the approval through the Florida Department of Emergency Management. So we are go for our annual update, and we've got, I guess, 4 more of these before our 5-year again. So just a little update on that. There wasn't, like I said, we did a lot of updating because of the storms. We had a lot more public information that went into our program for public information section of that, as well as the repetitive loss because of so many properties got damaged that it increased our repetitive loss properties. But other than that, that's kind of the update for that. So
Simple.
that was simple. Just wanted to give you that information. Any questions on that one?
All right.
Okay.
is the next one you?
The next one, I believe, is me as well.
Okay.
So,
Yep.
Vice Mayor Reed.
We are ready.
Commissioner Gittry.
We're gonna move on to customer service board.
We are, so I'm going up to hang out with Carly for a minute.
Oh, okay.
I'll move. Hold on 1 second. Okay. Are you good from there? Like,
Yeah,
okay. I didn't know if you needed me. You can come. I
okay,
just meant, I'm just starting on Google. Is that
That's fine. That's
Okay.
okay. I had mine all queued up, but mine doesn't work over here, so. I get to look at my lovely typing skills. All right, so there were some questions about navigating our customer service portal. So, it's not touchscreen.
I
I'm
found it quite
spoiled.
Yes.
So if you go to our permits and licensing website, on the city website, and you click on, it says, click here for access to the online portal. And that'll take us to our customer service, self-service website. So, and they tell me that this can be prettied up, and unfortunately, we went live about 9 months before the storm, and we were figuring it all out. And then since the storm, I have not had time to play with that. So it is available, it is functional, it is not as pretty as it could be. So we will work on that now that things are starting to calm down a little bit. But there are some areas here that you can search for public records, you can apply for your permit, you can, if you have an account with the city, you can log in or register, you can pay your invoices, and you can just view a map if you wanted to. So under our public records, the key to our public records is less is more. So I was thinking we could try Take 5, since that has an active permit as well as some previous data. And we see 1198 Pasadena Avenue pulls up because that is the only thing that's there. And it's search under all. You can search for just permits, just inspections, code cases, however if you want to just search for something specific. But if we tell it to search for all, it will pull up a number of records. It goes back very old records, because we've got Asian Star, we've got China Delight, got lots of stuff in here. The new China Buffet.
What's it, 1198?
Currently it's Take 5.
It's where the old Asian Star used to be.
So, and if you go down, so this is the building permit for 1198, for the current building permit. That's the new Take 5. So, and under there, it's got permit details. You can scroll down a little bit. It's got where we are in the process. So it'll give you, it's almost complete. It has the location, what they've paid in fees may not set up unless you, oh, it does show up. So the permit fees, the total fees are there, which gives you all of the things that they've been charged for, and the different invoices that they've paid, as well as you can go, it's too far, to inspections. And that'll give you a list of all the inspections that have been passed, how, if they've been needed re-inspection, if they were canceled, and there's 43 records on this. So it gives you a long list of everything that's been taken care of on that. And that's all public review. Sometimes there are attachments in here, sometimes there are not. This gives you your elevation certificate, which will open up in another tab, and you can open that up and see all that documentation. So this tells you where all their information on that property, what their elevation is. This was the in progress, so it doesn't show any of the elevation details in this. But there should be one that is a final one. Which should have more detail. So it'll tell you the top of the bottom floor, the lowest elevation of the machinery. So, yes.
So their permit expires on May 26th?
Yeah,
On May
May
this year.
24th, I think, of 26, yes.
So,
They'll request an extension, it'll get extended. We're still waiting on FDOT on this
FDOT.
one. I mean, there's really nothing that we can do
Unbelievable.
to change that. They're working with them to try and figure out their options there. But as you can see here, like, we've got a hazmat inventory sheet, we've got their storage systems, so there's lots of items in here. their contacts, you know, who you talk to, their architect, their contractor, the property owner. So all of that data is here. We had some holds placed on it at one time. They have been removed since then, but they still show as their status is now inactive instead of active, because they've cleared up those items, but it's all listed there. If you go, so that kind of gives you a ballpark of how the permit itself goes and what you can look up yourself if you choose. If you go to today's inspections at the top of the page, this gives you all of the inspections that are scheduled for today. As you can see, Chief's got a couple in there. So you can change it to however many you want to see at a time. But that gives you the list of inspections that are being done today. So if you have an inspection scheduled and you want to check and see, make sure you're on the list, it'll give you that.
I think it's very informative, the website.
There is
So
a-
the average person, instead of questioning and calling you, they could look it up themselves.
And they're still welcome to do that.
Yeah. But I
but-
meant that saves a step there.
It does.
Yeah.
The other thing we have, just as an aside, are on the FEMA flood safety site, so right next to our permit site. So in our list on the side under community improvement, we have our Forerunner program. And if you click on the link for Forerunner, this gives you the public access side of that, and you can just put in an address there as well. It'll take you right to that property, and it'll give you the data, all the flood data for this property.
I think that would be good
So-
if somebody's thinking of buying in an area.
Sure.
You know,
This is very helpful for realtors as well. If they're showing properties, they can have an idea of where that is. The vulnerability assessment numbers that are in this website are listed for Pinellas County did a vulnerability assessment. So those are based on their numbers. But the base flood elevation is the 10 feet. The design flood elevation is 12 feet because we have a 2-foot freeboard requirement in the city. So that gives you that data. It is not in the coastal A zone. There are other properties that are in the coastal A zone. And if we have an elevation certificate, all of that data shows up here on the website itself. So, and then that tells you what this is, the parcel information is from the Pinellas County Property Appraiser. It pulls it right into that.
Do we have an information sheet that people use, that gives them what to do on here if they ask? Or we don't have anything drawn up yet?
I do not have anything drawn up yet.
It'd be good for somebody article there, right? I think.
It's an interesting picture. Must be from the
Slow down
Google
some of your,
Street View.
some of your phone calls, yeah,
Yeah.
should slow it down.
So then if you go back, and say we wanna do. Let's try this one.
About, Chipotle,
There's nothing there.
nothing there.
No, not yet. But we can look at, let's look
Yeah,
at the
whatever you
City
wanna
Hall. So City Hall gives you,
Uh-huh,
this line tells you that part of the city is in a VE zone, which is a wave action possibility. This line here is the limit of moderate wave action. And that is a line that was just put on our new maps this past in August of 24, August 24. That line tells you that, see where the VE zone is, that shows you that there is wave action. That's any time that there's a possibility of waves above 3 feet is in that VE zone. The A zone is, there's no wave action. Between the V zone and the limit of moderate wave action line, that's the 1 to 3 foot possibility of waves. So
Okay.
that line has been added in our latest maps, which shows that, you know, waves don't go 3 feet high and then nothing, right?
Right.
They come into land and they keep going.
Yeah.
And they've discovered that that 1 to 3 foot area is still vulnerable to wave action, but it's not as detrimental as the 3 foot. So that just kind of gives you that breaking point between where the waves are not going to be as impactful. So that's considered the coastal A zone. And that will show up here. There is, use the effective. So it'll tell you that it is in a special flood hazard area, has mandatory flood insurance purchase requirements. It's intersected by multiple flood zones, so that gives you that information. And our bottom floor is at 4.3 feet. So, which is why we had so much water. So, I don't know if that was helpful at all.
Very much, yeah.
Did you have any other questions about?
It's nice to be able to, you know, of course, a lot of that's passed for our neighbors in our building. I'm sure everybody's building. What's going on with my permit? What's going on with my permit? You know, so now we can look it up or direct them to how to look it up too. which is
Yeah.
helpful.
Put your, so if they've got a unit number, they just enter that at the end of the address, or
It drops down,
1898.
but it
Right.
repopulates.
Yep, so it gives you,
only does so many though, right?
well, it only pulls up so many at the.
But it shows you how to do
permitted
it.
enclosed space.
Shows you how to enter it.
If you put APT and what unit number do you want me to put
Yeah.
in?
Because I know I've seen,
That's not my building.
when I went in there was some that were APT.
Oh, you're
Or
1868. Sorry.
Well, there was some that was APT and there was some that was unit.
407.
Yeah.
Things are-
And then hit search.
This might be a problem.
Look
No
at that.
result, that's not a
See,
problem.
we
All right.
broke it.
So he really doesn't live in the city after all?
Definitely not.
So it only gives you permitting information, and sometimes it will, you know, it might be that I didn't click on it. Let's try just permits. Just pick a random one. Okay.
Our building's perfect.
Well, I mean, there had to be some closed
I don't know if
permits.
this
You got permits on that.
I don't know if this would affect it or not, but when I went in, I had to change the APT to unit, UNIT, and then it worked.
Okay.
What did you
Actually,
do?
and then I had to put in the pound sign on one of them to get it to work. But I don't know.
Yeah, it depends on how it was loaded
Entered.
into the
Yeah.
system. So if I just did that.
Don't know if that makes a difference or not.
So
Now
that
you
should
get
pull up
everything.
everything.
Yeah, there's
That's why I
six
said
of them.
sometimes less is more. If you put too much information, sometimes it just goes, no, we got nothing.
Yeah.
So this will give you, that one, see that one says unit 609, so that might be what the difference is. It depends on how it was inputted, and we have legacy data in here as well.
Sure.
So our new stuff is very uniform in how we put it in the system.
So-
The older stuff,
Basically, somebody asked, they say, well, I can't find it using my unit number, and say, just put in the address to your building,
everything's
and
in
then
here.
look down
We
and
brought
find your
everything
unit.
over.
That's all, yeah.
But it might not be worded exactly the same.
Okay.
So to search for it, you know, some may say unit, some may say apartment, some may
Well,
have a
like that
colon,
permit
some may.
that was not on the website at the property appraiser, but you had that
Right.
information. Okay.
So
And then
let's get this uniformed.
Oh, that's a lot of work.
You don't have to go back, just start.
We're starting fresh, we are very uniform. Yeah, we have put it in very uniformly, going forward, but unfortunately, that's just been the last
Yeah.
3
Wow,
years.
it's amazing.
So, but yeah, if you look like this permit, you know, 10188 is from 2003.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that gives you, we've got
Our
lots of,
building's 60 years old, there's gonna be a lot of old data in there.
yes, the lower the numbers, the older the data is.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yes.
Almost.
Yeah.
69.
So, yeah, but there's lots of data, and like I said, less is more as far as when you put information in there. It doesn't like to if you put it in precisely, sometimes it just goes, nope, we're not gonna find that anywhere. Okay? All right, all good?
Yeah.
Now we can look up our neighbors, see if they're doing the right
There you
thing.
go.
Yeah, we're gonna, yeah.
Guarantee you there's people doing that every
That we
day.
are.
Then we can anonymously turn them in.
We're gonna do that.
Okay. Any questions on that presentation?
No, it's good.
Awesome. Pretty good. All right.
Be looking around that thing.
All right, well, now here's a tough one. Commissioner John Maroney, 30th Annual Law Enforcement and First Responder Appreciation Dinner. I think somebody went last year, didn't they? When do you
We're all
guys?
gonna go. The fire guys got an award, so they took our place.
That's what it was.
Not that you're Golden Crush, right?
He remembered though. That's pretty good.
I was there. I was there.
So they get an award this year too?
Not a John.
Oh, I haven't heard. Okay.
Not for John Maroney, maybe. Maybe.
So we got,
Moved this year too.
it's moved, it's up at Ruth Eckerd. It's also in a different time of year, it's usually like January, February, it's now in June. So it's a dinner, I believe, and they have
Saturday night.
Saturday night. So the question is, single tickets are $175, a table of 10, $17.50. And then there's sponsor options above that get you listed like in the program or get your logo on things. So I guess our question to you is, would you all like to go and participate? And if you do you want to do single tickets? And that way whoever wants to go. Do you want to get a table? What would you like to do?
I should know this, but what's the date?
June 13th.
Oh, June 13th.
It is a Saturday. It is up at,
It was something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
this
I
is
don't
up at
know.
Ruth Eckerd, like I said, so up in Clearwater.
I would think
It used to
if
be Caroline.
I would think if there's more than one of us going, we'd, well.
I'm out. I got grandkids in town.
Yeah. You gonna go?
I don't know where I'm
If we
gonna be.
decide to go, I fit my schedule if we decide.
Yeah, I gotta, I guess we just need to look at our calendars and check with our significant others. Because if they come, then we pay for them separately.
Typically,
What it
yes.
Okay. So,
So it's $175 a person?
It's $175 a person.
So we all get back to you
Table
by-
of 10 is $17.50.
get back
so
to you by end of business on Friday? We'll let you know. Does that work? Or do you need to know before then?
No, I mean, that's fine. Do you want to give me a threshold of saying if you all have over 5 of you going, do you want me to just get a table? If only like one
I
or
think it
two
was
of
gonna
you
be,
are
it's like one or
going,
two of us, you can individual
then do just
tickets.
do single tickets.
Even three would be individual tickets, I would think. I mean, it's not a big deal. You can't get a whole table for 3 people.
Unless you're gonna sit with
Unless it's 3 with spouses, that's 6 people. And then, I guess that's my question, is if 3 of you are going with spouses, would you like us to just get a table and we would fill the remaining seats with staff? Because it doesn't save you anything, but it would mean that you'd be able to sit together. Because I don't know if we did 6 individual tickets, if you would, I think they would try to seat you together, but.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I can look at my calendar.
Don't know what's gonna happen between now and then, though. June's pretty far off, but isn't that,
But we will be here for budget.
Oh, we will.
We
that's
will
for
not be
sure.
on vacation,
So,
as the Finance Commissioner says.
Yeah, actually, I have, tickets to a play, so I won't be going. Anybody else? Are you gonna wait?
I mean, do we need to be represented? Is that what we're
Well, we
asking?
skipped it a lot of times.
I mean,
because
I've
we
been
gave
there
like a
every
donation,
year.
Right?
We've done it differently
We
every
just
year.
kinda like
It's
donated it, not
dependent
gonna
on the
table it all.
circumstances.
Sometimes people wanna go, it just all depends. And
Well, and they made it a luncheon for a while, so it was like a Friday at lunch, so it was easier to
And
go.
that was
And
always
then-
better.
So it really, it depends on the circumstances. Every year we go, who is available.
Yeah.
It's different every single year.
We need to change that spouse thing, too, so. We need to change that spouse rule we got.
I think if we've done a table and there's been the space, it hasn't been an issue,
Yeah, we have done that.
Yeah.
so.
I remember when we put that into action and years ago, and it was, I guess because of a commission prior that was abusing it, prior years, back in,
Well, it's still an
like the
expense
Fred
to
Hell
the
days
city.
and those kind of things, where they went everywhere and took everybody and went on trips. But I think we're more refined and more sensible of what we do, and, I think we need to repeal that action on ourselves.
Well, and with all
So we
the,
can bring our spouses and not have to worry about the cost and everything else.
well, but the thing is, you know, with things the way they are financially, that we don't know what it's gonna be like financially.
Well, we
for
don't
the
know,
city.
we don't do this very often, that's the
No.
maybe a couple times a year, we gotta worry about it, but, anyway. But yeah, so I guess you guys need to let Carly know what you wanna do, because I know I've got this, so.
I'm out.
Yep.
I'm not gonna go.
So I guess let's just donate to the table?
Just make a
Move it, so-
donation,
Yeah,
like we've done in the past.
but what have we done in the past, you remember?
We've done different things. We've
It's
had
done,
tables.
yeah, it's varied because the cost to participate is varied. And
Well,
so-
last year, the firemen got the awards. So we had a table.
Yeah,
We had a table, and then there was also, you guys were at the chief's table.
Well, there's that, if they wanna go,
Yeah, because our table.
or if you wanna go, or whoever wants to go.
I mean, we can
Yeah,
ask the
right, we had
staff.
all the guys.
Yeah, check the staff, if anybody wants to go.
Let's do that. And if not, then it's a good thing to do. So, I like the better one with the lunch too. All right,
Okay.
just leave that one.
Anybody got anything else?
I have one very quick thing.
Sure.
So the Community Development Block Grant Program, it's a state program that the county is in control of locally. You have an option to either participate in the county's program or to go through it yourself if you want to apply for funding. So every year they send a letter. There's not a lot that we qualify for in this, so it's a little bit of a moot point for us because we don't have the type of community structure to be eligible for a lot of the funding. But they ask us every year, do you want to participate through the county or are you gonna do this yourself if you want to apply? So I spoke with Heather about it. Her recommendation was to just stay the way we have been, which is to just participate through the county if we're going to. So I'm just asking you for consensus to have Arthur sign that we're just gonna stay within the county's group. So,
Just work before.
okay.
That's fine.
That's it?
That was it.
All right,
Yep.
nothing? Got a hand up?
Our first virtual hurricane presentation, preparedness presentation, is Thursday at 2 p.m. You guys can let your neighbors know. This one will be Zoom. We'll have another one on Zoom and then a live one, so 3 this month.
I guess that'll be on Facebook soon.
Yep.
You can share.
Yep, it's out.
Okay.
So,
It's
All right.
here.
also let me know if you wanna do fire ops.
Oh, fire
Send an
ops.
email.
Yeah.
If you wanna do fire ops, please let me know. You don't have to participate if you
That's
wanna
this
participate.
month, right?
You could
Yes.
get another dummy.
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah, you've done that.
next weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's next weekend. So just let me know if you wanna go and then let me know if you're going to participate, cause I need to make sure we have bunker gear for you. Yes, yeah, a couple of you have already responded.
problem last
Until I
time.
went to
So-
the firehouse and got fitted
I'm
for that.
not going to.
DC's
I'm
here,
like,
very
I'm
good
not-
to me.
I remember.
Next weekend.
Okay,
Man, it sucks
Okay.
having a life sometimes.
I know. Stop that.
I always go, just to.
All right, everyone, thank you for coming.
Hey, one
Great
more-
meeting.
One more quick, on some good news.
Oh.
We did receive our $250,000 grant.
Yeah, right, good job.
Yeah, huh?
Yay.
And the other 175 is gonna come.
So,
That's right. Okay,
I can throw one out too.
yes.
Our planner accepted the position and should be starting at the end of the month.
Oh,
Right.
good.
Yep,
Good.
hurry up.
Good month.
yep.
All right, we are adjourned. Go home, go to work, go have fun.